There was a cave in the forest. The necromancer entered it. He looked tired and was breathing heavily. Since he spent more power than he expected, he planned to hide inside, since he felt some warmth. In there, his plan was to set a fire, but to his surprise, two men were already sitting by the bonfire. Barrows acknowledged the necromancer's presence and expressed that they were worried since the man was late. Karnak commended the guy for having a keen eye and finding their usual hiding spot. The necromancer was wary of them, and he asked who they were. Karnak stated that there's people out there wanting to capture the man. The necromancer was offended that the two were trying to mess with him. He used his powers and called for his servants. He planned to use those wraiths to buy time, and he blamed them for bringing their doom. By themselves, the wraiths were floating around Barrows and Carrick. Barrows asked Carrick what he plans to do since Barrows couldn't cut those creatures. AK instructed him to stay put because Carrick planned to test his chaos mana. The necromancer is already a few steps away from the entrance of the cave. He ran as fast as he could while the two were still occupied. Suddenly, he heard an explosion, and he saw his wraiths being blasted away. Karnak and Barrow came out of the smoke and asked him where he was off to. Karnak used conceal and explode. His fireball rained down on the wraiths. The necromancer thought Karnak was a mage. He didn't expect Karnak to be stronger than what he had imagined. If it continues, he will be caught. So he feels cornered. He decided to show Carrick the true power of death by calling upon the evil spirit. A large wraith appeared. Barrow commented on how energetic this man is. Karnak looks disgusted at the damn fool for calling it an evil spirit when its proper name is wraiths. The man scoffed and stated that he could see how terrified Karnak was. Karnak's pissed off expression was funny. The necromancer told them that it's too late to beg for their lives now. He instructed the wraith to attack them. Karnak looked angry. He uttered hey and commanded kneel. The floating wraith immediately crashed on the ground, and indeed it was kneeling in front of Karnak. The man was surprised and curious if Carrick is also a necromancer. Karnak was pissed off, and he releases it by stomping on the wraith's head while replying to the necromancer that he's so clueless. He showed him green magic and uttered that he assumed the man also doesn't know what it is. He used misdirection. Carrick specifically shared that this spell was his. It was his specialty. The large green hand that formed grabbed the man. Later on, the man was covered in blue mist. Karnak instructed him to get up, and the man called Karnak his master. Karnak interrogated him on how he got his necromancy powers. The man replied that it was just a stroke of luck. He narrated that he was drowning his sorrows in the streets as usual when suddenly a darkness from an alley engulfed him. An unknown power began to course through his body, and when he realized it was the authority of the apocalypse as foretold by the prophecy, with such power available for the taking, he didn't hesitate for a second. Using those powers was easy for him, and he quickly grew stronger. Then, with his powers, he killed all the people he disliked and snuck into a mansion. Karnak paused him there. He casually uttered that the man was just a random nobody. Barrows asked him if he plans to use mind control on the man, since the man has his own dagger. Karnak agreed to it since they had to clean things up. Blood was spilled. They made it seem like the man took his own life. Barrows was surprised that Karnak was taking the man's power when he's supposed to avoid dirty energy like that. Karnak explained that he needs to look into it further. He knew that a search party would arrive soon, so he just took a little bit to avoid suspicion. But then he was caught off guard. Barrows asked if he's okay. They can hear the soldiers coming closer. Karnak replied that something was strange with the powers. A few days later, a barrier was put up inside a room. Barrows asked Karnak if what he's saying is that serious that they needed a soundproof barrier. Karnak replied that it was no ordinary thing. He explained that he took a closer look at the power that he collected the other day, and he revealed that he's the cause. Barrow couldn't follow what he's saying because it does not make sense on the timeline that they are in. Carrick admitted that he had no idea either, but he's certain that it matches his powers perfectly. Barrows asked how it was possible. Carrick asked him if he remembers the reason why they chose regression over possession. Barrows replied that it was because the bodies that they possessed couldn't handle the spiritual power that they had. Karnak replied that he's right and added that they had too much power and tried squeezing themselves into bodies that couldn't handle it, but they decided to abandon their powers and separated their souls to regress back into their original bodies, but that didn't leave Karnak's power in the future after he left his living body and used energy to create the Isnap. He became something that wasn't quite a body nor a spirit in his necromancy. Powers were bound to spirit instead of his body. Karnak's powers crossed into the past along with his soul, but his body was unable to handle it, so it must have released most of that power. Barrows turned pale when he realized that Karnak's powers also came to the past. Karnak replied yes, and added that expelled energy became the darkness of the end. Barrow sighed as he thought of the power that was brought back and scattered to end the world. He thought it would be hopeless for them. He suggested that maybe Carrick could take his power back since it follows his command. Karnak was disgusted at the suggestion and sarcastically asked if a coin that he drops on the street would roll back to him. Barrow screamed his frustration out. Karnak finally really realized that it was to try trusting the world when in fact he already tried ruining it once the results are clear. They had to do something even if they weren't thrilled about it. Barrows asked what he plans to do. Karnak planned to look into the other darkness of the end. Barrows sighed as he assumed that they would be back living out of sacks. Karnak assured him that he will be well fed under the bright sun. The two traversed the path while mounted on a horse. Barrow seemed to enjoy it as he expressed that it doesn't feel so bad. He assumed that it might be because they are not being chased. Carrick recalled how they had quite the trouble before. Barrows also noticed that there are no signs of bandits. They used to get harassed by those people all the time. Karnak replied that it's because they clearly look like they have some backing, so the bandits won't touch them. Barrows responded how it's nice to have money. They left the estate under the pretense of training and headed to Durar. Carrick chose that place because it is where the last necromancer they caught got the powers, so there must be clues. Barrows asked if Carrick had some tracking magic or something to trace the darkness of the end. Karnak replied that they're going to do it the old-fashioned way. He asked Barrows if he still remembers where they went back in the day. They had arrived at the entrance of Daroth at Deer's Adventurer Guild. It is the best place to gather information since they have all kinds of information at hand. After all, in the past Carrick and Barrows were able to launder their identities as adventurers, and this time it has proven to be helpful once again. Carrick told him that it will be different this time, since there's no need for them to become adventurers either. They went to the reception. Barrows handed out a pouch full of coins. The receptionist was delighted to receive it. He greeted them warmly and confirmed if they needed information related to the darkness of the end. Barrows acted like a knight and replied that his lord cares that the monsters are in his territory. Karnak added that he needs every single detail. The receptionist told them that there have been quite a bit of requests related to the darkness of the end lately, and thanks to that they have quite a lot of information on it. He placed a huge pile of documents on the table and informed Karnak and Barrows that they could start with looking through, that the two didn't expect it to be that many. They went through the documents, but there's just too much false information. There are incidents like scam or a dog eating a chicken, all sorts of stuff being pinned to the darkness of the end. The receptionist noticed that there wasn't much useful information. He asked if he should filter out the useless ones. Karnak replied no, since he wants to see all of it. Barrows was about to complain. Karnak touched his shoulder with his glowing hand. He used magical messaging since there were a lot of people there. Magical messaging system is created by Carrick using chaos magic. It allows for stealthy conversations with Barrows. Karnak told Barrows that sometimes important information is hidden among those tons of useless-looking documents. Barrow complained that it's going to take longer than expected. Their attention was caught by someone who yelled, "Why don't you believe me?" A red-haired man screamed that there is an evil necromancer in their town. He wants to file a report even if no one wants to believe him. The receptionist asked the man if he's saying that a necromancer appeared in his town. He asked the man if he had reported it to the temple. The man frustratingly replied that the temple didn't believe him either. The receptionist encouraged the man to explain the situation. First, the man narrated that a while ago a foreigner named Cleo appeared in their town. As soon as the man arrived, he took residence in an abandoned mansion. Clea would flirt around using his smile. The man had no idea where Clea got all his money from at such a young age, but he would hold town festivals all the time to make the townspeople like him. Also, he seduced all of the young women of the town with some strange skill. The man cried as he narrates that even his Fiancée Emily fell for Cleo. The people who heard the story summarized it as, some young, handsome, and rich man is popular in town, and it's not something that requires dark power, more like a common rich playboy. They told the red-haired guy that he's just overthinking it. The receptionist politely told him that he cannot accept the report, but he gave the man an option to pay the fees to personally hire an adventurer. The man's eyes bulged when he saw how much it would cost. He exited the guild fuming. The men who heard the story laughed and commented that the red-haired man should just keep his jealousy in check. They assumed that the man thought that everyone would get up and do something if he mentioned necromancy. There were just too many people like that guy. Recently, Karnak was slightly upset that they weren't able to get anything good. Barrow suggested they go to a good restaurant nearby. Before they exited, the receptionist assured them that he'll contact them if anything new comes in. While they were walking, Barrows called the young master's attention. He asked Carrick if he also thinks that Cleo is suspicious. Carrick replied yes. Barrows wondered why the man would do that in some hillbilly town instead of the city when he's handsome and rich. Karnak knew that there's only one reason why Cleo would pick innocent country girls. He's after the souls of virgins. Carrick knew that it must be some kind of dark magic. That's why they hurried. It's almost sunset by the time they arrived at the town. Karnak knocked in the air. Barrows saw that there's a barrier. It's very precisely made too. Even a high-ranked priest would have a hard time detecting it. It made them think that Cleo must be pretty skilled. Carrick still entertains the idea that it could still be a simple barrier. They plan to check if Cleo is part of the darkness of the inn. Karnak also considers that the man could just be an ordinary necromancer too. Suddenly, they heard someone, a man in a robe, was calling out to them. They were taken AB to see a priest there. The priest introduced himself as alias Rank 1. Inquisitor of the Earth Order that serves Hatoba. Rank 1 meant that this man is a high-ranked priest. Barrows introduced Baron Karnak of Jester and himself as the family's knight. Barrows, the priest, realized that they weren't adventurers. He asked what brings them there. Karnak explained that he heard some strange rumors while passing by, so he wanted to take a look. The priest was delighted, and he asked them if they could do him a favor. His excitement exudes as he justified that it is all for the goddess, and it's nothing weird. Barrows asked what it would be. He whispered that there's a possibility that a necromancer is in town. Carrick was surprised that the order knew about it. Both Karnak and Barrow were stunned. It's a bad situation. So they asked the priest why he came alone. The priest sighed and explained that the order won't do anything unless there is concrete evidence. They don't believe that there is a necromancer in the town, since there is so much false information lately. Karnak uttered that the situation is suspicious already. The priest replied that it is a relative issue. He explained that it is not hard to be considered rich and handsome in a countryside town like that. Compared to the city, anyone could be called those things if they just have a bit more money than others and aren't as tan. The priest admitted that he was trying to take care of the matter on his own. He observed D. Barrows and saw the sword and armor that looked fairly used along with a well-trained body. He assumed that someone like him can't be weak. He told them that both of them looked very skilled, so they would be a great help. Karnak and Barrows looked displeased. They communicated stealthily on how annoying the situation is, but they decided to accompany the priest for now, since they need to check out some things too. Barrows was concerned that the priest would find out that Karnak is also a necromancer. Karnak's solution for that is to erase the priest's memories. Barrows called him evil and told him to avoid that since he has yet to see someone stay sane after going through that. Carrick replied to the priest that since they are also children of the goddess, they would help the priest. The priest shook his hand and thanked him. He ushered them to the town's church first. The structure was fairly decent. They were welcomed by the town's church head Gra, and the nun Julia Grass told them that Cleo is a great help to the town, and they're certain that the man is completely unrelated to necromancy. The nun informed them that a priest had stopped by earlier, but he just left after a while. They told them that it's a shame that they came for nothing. Alias was slightly disappointed, but he masked that with a smile and informed the nun that it's great that they came in there for nothing, since that means that no one is in danger. They had guided them to their rooms. The mansion was covered in a blue field. Inside, Gra reported to Cleo that another person from the order had come to investigate. Cleo told him to report as Soon as they noticed something was off, Cleo was pissed off that the rats just kept going on. He grits his teeth, and the nerves of his face popped out. Once they reached their room, the priest encouraged them to rest. Karnak told Alias that even Gra and Julia have very positive opinions of Cleo. He considered the idea that everyone in town is being deceived. Alias agreed and replied that it would be pointless to interrogate people about Cleo. He decided to meet the man himself. Karnak was astonished to hear that Alias wants to go to the mansion. He asked if Alias would interrogate Cleo. Alias replied that there is a more effective method than that, and he needed Karnak and Barrows to just go along with his plan. Even at night, the mansion was covered in a blue field. A maid walked in the hallway. It was Cleo, and the maid noticed him. She asked where he was headed. To Cleo replied that he's on his way to greet an unwanted guest. The maid's eyes reflected Cleo as if she's hypnotized. Cleo told her not to worry. They said good night to each other. Once the maid was gone, he expressed how amazing the charm is and how weak the human mind is. They didn't see his real appearance. It took him almost half a year to prepare everything to summon a demon. It's about time for his efforts to bear fruit, and yet another hindrance appears. He's glad that he placed the detection barrier. He planned to talk to the guests and send them back. He found them. Those people wore robes to hide themselves, and they were in the middle of stealing the paintings while one of them carries a large sack behind him. Cleo wondered who these people were. Those suspicious men appeared harmless as they admitted that they had been caught. They asked if Cleo is the master of the estate, and then they asked if Cleo can give them money too, since he's been giving money to the townspeople. Cleo scoffed at the thieves. He couldn't believe that he got worried for no reason. The thieves acted tough and told him that they would teach him a lesson, but Cleo exudes an intimidating aura while telling them that they are some unworthy trash who are unworthy of becoming sacrifices. He attacked them, but a spell was casted and a shield was formed around the thieves. Cleo was surprised to see the holy spell. The thieves removed their clothes things. When, as they expected, that Cleo revealed his real identity, easily. Alias happily replied that their method had already been proven. Cleo realized that he had been too complacent. He had no choice but to get rid of them right there, and then he called for the undead from the underworld, and several zombies had appeared. Alias informed Barrows and Carrick that he would buy them some time. Barrows efficiently attacked the zombies while Karnak used magic arrows. The zombies were hit right on the middle of their chest. Cleo felt cornered. He had to execute his plan a bit early. He then called for the beast from the underworld. A bright red light crashed on the ground. It was a demon knight. It had two pointy horns, large wings, and a muscular body. Cleo was confident that his enemies wouldn't be able to handle that. Alias took out his staff, and he casted holy dispel towards the demon knight, and they got washed away with warm, gentle yellow. Like Cleo didn't expect him to do a counter summon, the demon knight expressed that he didn't want to disappear like that. It screamed loudly until it vanished in the air. While Cleo watched it happen, Alias had anticipated the spell that Cleo would use. Cleo starts to feel angry, and he acknowledges that those three aren't just somewhere. Ragtag Cleo decided to reveal himself. He groaned loudly as his body became larger, and his clothes were being ripped. Even his legs are growing. He was enveloped in bright red light, and his red muscular body had been revealed. Alias didn't expect that would happen. He didn't have enough time to cast another counter summon. He turned to Karnak and Barrows to warn them to be careful, but to his surprise, the two had already charged at the enemy. Barrows slashed the enemy several times, and Karnak released several magic arrows at once. An arrow hit Cleo directly at his chest, and just like that, he's laying on the ground defeated. Alias took time to process what just happened. He noticed that Karnak and Barrows' strength is ordinary, but their teamwork is incredible. Barrows asked the priest if they should kill Cleo or let him be. Alias replied that he'll take care of him. They crouched beside him, and Alias had his glowing staff above Cleo's body. Cleo's body returned to its human appearance as the staff glowed brightly. It drew out evil miasma from the cuts on Cleo's body, and the priest collected that power in a bottle as he was expecting. It was the darkness of the end. Alias uttered that what is left for him to do is clean up the hallway, but he was karate chopped on the neck. Then he fell unconscious. Barrow caught his body. Karnak was the one who did that, and he told Bar that they will start with their agenda too. They lay the body side by side while they sat down and observed The darkness of the end in the bottle. Barrows asked Karnak if he found anything. Interesting. Karnak had deduced that the guy had always been a necromancer, and he happened to have the chance to absorb some of the darkness of the end. They couldn't blame the guy since it's tempting because of its great power. Karnak was also able to figure out that Cleo is a cult member that reveres Tez. Rainik. Barrows asked what it was. Karnak explained that Tannik is considered the god of death. Barrows was surprised since he's under the impression that Karnak is the god of death, especially when not anybody can claim a title like that. Karnak replied that he doesn't know anything either. According to the gospel of the cult, Tannik is the god of death. In rebirth, he's considered to be an entity that will purify the world through death and create a new paradise. Barrows assumed that the cult that follows Tess or something must be the reason for everything. Karnak agreed with him. There's one more thing Karnak had gained with the power of a priest. He can easily refine chaos mana. Barrows asked him if the reason why Karnak wants to go with the priest is to test it out. Karnak told him that he's correct since chaos mana is purified and sealed rainy power. If Carrick used divinity, he could easily purify more chaos mana. Now Barrows understood that the reason why Carrick wanted to help the priest was to experiment with divinity. He commented that it was interesting to watch with that Karnak's mana had doubled. He should be about a fourth circle magician. He placed the bottle in the priest's hands. Barrow thought of being on the lookout for artifacts Karnak suggested stealing from a church later. Then he asked Barrows' help to wake up the priest. Barrows happily agreed, and his act started. He sounded concerned for the priest. The morning had come. Alias was embarrassed to get caught in a trap. Seems like he was completely convinced by Karnak and Barrows' acting. It looked like everything ended well, and the charmed townspeople seemed confused. Alias assured them that with the help of the church, the people would eventually calm down. He asked where the two were headed to Karnak told him that they planned to rest in Darth City. They bid each other goodbye. Alias wished them blessings of Haba. Deep inside, Alias finds those two suspicious. He decided to return and learn more about them. Meanwhile, Carrick and Barrows were oblivious to that fact. At the outskirts of Darth City, a muffled noise can be heard from inside the house. The man had been splashed with water. Barrows hanged the man upside down with water beneath the head. The man yelled that he's a necromancer and he would tell them everything he knows. He asked him what they wanted to know. Karnak instructed Barrows to dunk the man on the water. All the bad energy is flowing out. The holy water was the best for extracting it. Barrows asked if they should pour in some more. Karnak replied yes. Eventually their business was done, and the two were walking on the street in the middle of the night. Karnak was pleased that they got tons of information that day, and things were working out well. Barrows informed Karnak that he would contact Hoba in order to clean up the mess. They had caught quite a few necromancers. Barrow didn't expect that Alias would ask for their assistance, since they had never met before. Karnak responded that it just shows how much they needed help, and the Order probably investigated those two after the Galatown incident. But even if the Order digs deep, Karnak was certain that the only thing that they will find is that he lost his family to necromancers. So naturally those people would think of Carrick to be someone who is hunting necromancers because the church brought them important cases for free and gave them tons of relics. Carrick had no complaints. Barrows suggested that it's time to head back, but Karnak replied not yet. It was funny how Barrows assumed that Karnak would want to collect every shattered piece. Karnak replied that isn't the case. He explained that he's just blocking the pathways through which it spreads. Looking through it, the power is spread through gates in time, and Karnak is investigating for those gates to appear. Barrows commented that it would at least take 3 more months. He assumed that some massive event was going to happen. When Barrows opened the door, a letter fell. Karnak picked it up. They thought it was from the Hobo Order. It was stated that Alias wants to see them, and he'll explain more in person. They could feel something big brewing at the Hoba Temple. Alias excitedly welcomed them. Alias introduced Soroy and Reen to Knight Barrows and Baron Karnak. Rain introduced himself as a 6th mage, while Saroy Allen, a swordsman, is from the Adventurer Guild. Barrows and Karnak used their special messaging. They remembered Soroy as the one who awakened her martial energy at the age of 20. She's quite famous lately, and they also noted that the man Reelin is an advanced mage. 2 mages and martial energy users are sorted into Levels depending on their power, the more circles a mage has, the more advanced the spells they can use. A grand mage of the 10th circle becomes a being that transcends the limits of humanity. Karnak had reached the stage of a grand mage, but he lacked mana. An aura user awakened into martial energy is in essence the same. They are categorized into red, blue, purple, silver, and then gold knights. The higher they are, the purer and stronger the aura gets among them. Becoming a gold knight is a stage only attained by the 4th martial king. Reelan is a 6th circle, while Soroi is a red knight, so they suffice as backup. Karnak asked Barrows if he never learned martial energy on his own. Karnak reasoned out that he fought the martial king evenly. Even if he didn't, he told Karnak that he's poking on his weak spot. Karnak told the two that it's an honor to meet both of them. Soroi replied that they didn't have to. Reelan was amused with them, since they were the one who managed to catch so many necromancers in such a short amount of time. Alias decided to move the conversation. Since the introductions were done, he told them that there's a big problem. He explained that their order got involved in a problem in Triss City, and it's been causing them problems. Since then, Triss City is located between the Kingdom of Edel and the Kingdom of Tarim. It's a city that has long quarrels over its land. The kingdoms grew tired of quarreling, sent one of each nobility to be married, and created the Count family of Triss to rule over the neutral land. However, the problem is that this city is located in a place that is suitable for trade. They lack the authority to properly rule over the growing wealth and number of people, leading to crime syndicates taking control. Thus, Triss was turned into ruins by continued crime, and the largest crime syndicates, the Ramf Felts and the PLS, expanded their power. The two clans claimed the heritage of Triss bloodline and split the city, but they've been fighting to determine the successor. The kingdoms, which had been troubled by the management of the city, agreed to acknowledge whichever side could rule the city properly as the new count. And so the Ramf Felts and PLS fight continued on for decades, but the PLS gained the upper hand ever since the darkness of the end took hold. The PLS, who were involved in the slave trade business, worked with necromancers who had similar goals. The PLS then quickly began to attack Ramf Felts, but they drew too much trouble. The Ramf Felts, having discovered the past use of necromancers, reported it to Hatoba Order, and the Order made a move as soon as they saw an F confirmed the usage of necromancy. The fight ended in the victory of Ramf Felts, and the PLS were barely able to maintain their name. Karnak commented that it sounded like everything had been resolved, but Alias added that the Ramf Felts are also being accused of using necromancers, just that unlike the PLS, they hit it well. Soroi was utterly surprised that both families are the same, and the Order wasn't aware of it. Alias defended that it was hard to tell by the darkness of the end left. Soroi was annoyed and expressed that those people are unforgivable. Barrows turned pale while thinking how the story sounds awfully familiar. Barrows' reaction to the fuming Carrick is funny. Karnak was enraged, saying that those people couldn't be called humans. Deep inside, Barrows thought of how Karnak had no shame. Barrows stated that the Hatoba Order's reputation is at stake, so it must be done. Disc Alas told him he's right. They had to move carefully. If they mess up, it might cause trouble in catching necromancers in the future. They plan to disguise themselves and infiltrate the city. First, someone asked why Alias didn't assign this to the members of the Order. He told them that he's ashamed to admit it, but they are leaking information from within the Order. The previous group that they sent to the Ramf Felts disappeared without a trace when they were all skilled adventurers. They suspect Bishop Straff. He's a high-ranking priest who assisted the Ramf Felts in driving out the PLS. Karnak asked if Alias hadn't informed the rest of the Order about the plan. Alias replied that he's doing it of his own accord. He had enough authority to do it, so he intends to report it after it is done. He stated that they need definite proof of necromancy being used. Soroi said that it's dangerous, and there's a risk that the whole city could turn against them. Alas agreed and told them that it's exactly why they called them. He believes that all of them will be able to fend for themselves in the worst-case scenario. At the Renal Manor underground chamber, someone is heard groaning. The dark place was lit up by a torch, and it can be seen that many were tortured there. A man in robe told the other man that it has been a while since the Order sent those men. The man in robe asked the man in front of him if that man thinks that the Order would make a Move again, the man replied that they will welcome them, since they are sending more sacrifices. That person is Bishop. Straffy used his green magic and attacked the prisoners. Those men screamed from the pain. The man in the robe asked the bishop if his body could handle that amount. Bishop Straff replied, no. He created a circle with his fingers, and a light had emerged at the center. Because his body won't be able to handle it, it is why he protects his body with the grace of the goddess. He wished that the order would send more formidable adventurers. In that way, he would benefit more. Meanwhile, Alias and the rest had arrived. This place is Tris City. It was like a ghost city because the infrastructure is in ruins and the people are dying on the streets with the crime so rampant. It's not how it normally is. Like Alias advised them to hold on to their belonging. Suddenly a dagger flew their way. It ripped out the pouch on Rant's waist. The gold coins fell and small hands caught it, and those children ran as fast as they could. Reelan was furious that his many had been stolen. It wasn't a surprise that the city is called City of Sin, since even children behave that way. Reelan asked how they can even trust staying the night at an inn in a place like that. Alias told them that he know a place they were all surprised that it is where they will be staying. It was the Plath's Manor. They all think Alias is insane for bringing them to the house of the family that he has brought down. They were gathered around the table. They listen intently to the person saying that all those who have dippers in their hands and ban magic should have been punished, and that includes her father. But she insisted that Ramfeldt also broke the law, and she just can't let them get away with it. This person is the head of the Plath household. Sildura Ali enthusiastically agrees with her by saying that they couldn't just watch the Tris parish commit all those acts of violence. It's subtly saying that it's Tris' fault, not theirs. Karnak and Barrows watched him manug to redirect the hatred towards the Tris parish, and they realized how scary he is. Alias told Sildura that since they agree on that matter, he would appreciate her help regarding the operation against Renfeld. She replied that she will do her best to help and asked him of his plans. She shared that Ramfeldt have reinforced their security recently, so it is impossible to approach the mansion unless there's someone who's highly ranked, and that's exactly why Alias had thought of ambushing the Ramfeldt residents. They were all surprised to hear that Relan asked if he's serious. Since it's a bit too simple of a plan, Alias confidently replied that it will work. Sildura shared that the Ramfeldts don't have much of a military force in the estate, so it's doable, but she's concerned since they don't have any information on Necromancers. Alias replied that it was fine. He explained that the people with him are veterans when it comes to fighting Necromancers. Later that night at the Ramfeldt estate, the guards are patrolling the estate walls while there are men in robes who take their position on the other side of the walls. They lit a bottle while saying that it's all for the sake of revenge. They threw the lit bottles on the other side of the walls. When it crashed on the ground, the fire immediately spread. The soldiers were caught off guard. The ambush made them panicked, but they have decided to take care of the attackers on the other side of the wall. Little did they know Alias and the rest had already snuck in. Karnak commented that the men were pretty useful. Alias told them to use the opportunity to get in. He could already smell the stench of necromancy inside the mansion. Their path has been blocked by several soldiers, and those soldiers asked if it was the PLS who sent them. Looked fired up, and meeting those elite knights, he released fireballs that blasted those knights away. It was followed by chain lightning. The soldiers panicked at how fast he could cast a spell. One soldier replied that there's no need to panic since there's only 5 enemies, but then to their surprise they saw a battle or a sword. Soroi launched a slash attack and hit several soldiers at once. The soldiers were surprised that there is an aura user in the group. Her moves were smooth as she sliced several soldiers consecutively. Barrows watched her pouts and commented that it's now how it's done. He commented that her movements are disappointing. Karnak argued that it's a rich comment coming from someone who doesn't even have a battle aura. They sensed a soldier from behind, and Barrows knew it's time for his warm-up. He hit those soldiers with just one small move. Karnak started releasing arrows too. He hit the soldiers right at their chest. The soldier writhed from the pain. Meanwhile, Alias was fuming while he defeated the soldiers. He's like an aggressive chihuahua. Karnak watches him and wonders where a priest learned to wield a sword that way. Eventually, they noticed that the soldiers were falling back, but Soroi asked why the Necromancers aren't coming out. Alias assumed that they were waiting inside the building, and it would be more advantageous for them to fight in there. They entered the mansion and noticed how quiet it was. Then they heard someone acknowledge that they made it that far. 3 people hiding under their hood stood above the staircase, and behind them was a large Grim Reaper. The person continued to speak, saying that the high-rank mage and the aura user is quite famous. The person added that it is all pointless in the face of the power of the dark. The Grim Reaper is actually a high-ranked undead specter. Upon seeing that the 5 of them lit up, they had found the evidence, and it made them happy and excited. They just have to capture them, and that should be good enough. As evidence, Barrows and Karnak were having a secret conversation on how those 3 men in robes are all going to be good money. The men in robes got offended that they dared laugh. While in that situation, they ordered the specter to attack. Its job is to absorb the human's life essence. Alias casted a spell saying that the light of the goddess shall punish all that is impure. His bright green light envelopes the specter. The men in robes were surprised to see that there's a priest. Suddenly, Soroi stepped in and slashed the specter, and she charged directly at the men in robes. She was close enough. Unexpectedly, those men were hit on the head. Alias turned pale and reminded her that they need them alive. Soroi replied that it wasn't her. They saw vines formed around the pillars of the mansion. They were surprised to see it transforming. The whole area was covered in red vines. It had entirely changed. Then someone commented that it was such a nice harvest. This person has his eyes on the aura user and the 6th circle mage, and there's even Inquisitor Alias. Alias recognized the voice. He became certain it was Trist Parish's Bishop. Straff revealed himself and asked if Alias came there because he was suspicious of him. Alas, didn't want to believe that a servant of the goddess would be tempted by the power of the dark. Soroi and Reelan reported that all exits have been blocked and they can't destroy the walls. Alas shared that it was because their powers are weakened by the dark in the area. He planned to eliminate the death energy, but there's one problem: his divinity isn't working. Karnak noticed that the divine power is actually feeding the necromancy power. Straff laughed and asked them if they really thought that the people they came across until then were real necromancers. He told them that it wasn't the case, because if that was all there was to necromancy, then why would the 7 orders be so wary of the power of the dark? He asked. Alas, how it is being able to meet a real necromancer. Karnak used their secret messaging to tell Barrows to get ready. Barrows was confused. Karnak told him that if they got unlucky, it could be their end. He explained that the barrier is mixed with divine power and necromancy power. He had never seen a barrier like that before. There isn't anything he can do against it. He has to use only chaos mana and necromancy power. Barrows asked if Karnak doesn't know that spell. He wondered how some hillbilly town priest could pull it off when Karnak couldn't even recognize the spell. Straff told them that there is nowhere to run. They felt that something was coming. They were caught off guard. It was a necromancy puppet, a chaotic golem. It moved towards their direction. Alas, casted a barrier around them to protect them from the incoming attack. But the golem was about to shatter the barrier. Alias announced that it can't hold on any longer. Reelan told him to hold on a bit longer because he'll try to do something. Reelan then started casting a spell. His staff has fire on the tip, but before he could release the fireball, they were all blasted away as the barrier had fully shattered. 2 more golem approached them. The golem reported that they had captured the priest and the high-ranking mage. Straff instructed them to lock those 2 in the basement together with the other offerings. Unexpectedly, Soroi attacked the golem, but to her surprise, it had no effect. Straff commented that the remaining 2 are useless, but the woman is considerable. It was funny how Barrows and Karnak pouted after hearing that they are irrelevant. Straff finds Sarath's soul really nice. Out of the blue, Barrows came to a rescue. He concentrated his power on his sword and attacked the golem right into its chest. Its body was shattered into pieces. Sarati was curious on how he did that without using any aura. The weak points of chaotic golems are the spots where mana doesn't flow. The issue is that the flow keeps shifting, making it tough to pinpoint the weak spots, but of course Barrows can do it since he has plenty of experience. He left Soroi to fend for herself, since if he ran out of stamina, he would be finished too. He's wondering where the young master is, since he should be stepping in by then. Karnak was in a dire situation since necromancy isn't working either. Even if he tries to imbue the fog with his own necromancy power, he still can't control it at that Rate they're gonna lose, so he needed another solution. He didn't expect that there were necromancy spells that he didn't know about. He suspected that there's something else involved in it. Karnak had an idea on what it could be. He decided to test his theory. Barrows is starting to get annoyed with the golems. Carrick used his powers to defeat the golem. Straff is pissed off that they destroyed his chaotic golems easily. He regretted underestimating those two, and that he should have absorbed the necromancy scroll sealed in the Hoba order. The golems aren't enough. He had to try something else. A blue menacing spirit appeared. Karnak called Sarthi. She was surprised to find out that those two were already together inside the barrier. She ran as fast as she could. While the spirit chased her, it was funny how the two men just watched her struggle. She grits her teeth and faces the spirit. She planned to slice it, but the spirit had hit her hand first, and it made her scream loudly from the pain. Straff was pleased to capture the aura user. Suddenly someone said, "That's enough." Soroy was unconscious in the hands of the spirit. Karnak called Straffen. Amateur necromancer RMC has confirmed his suspicion. Straff was confused on what's going on. The barrier is collapsing. Straff asked what he had done. Karnak replied that he didn't do much, just simply placing his barrier on top of STFS. He told Straff that he's acting so high and mighty when he's just an amateur. Straff argued that he's not an amateur. He called for more undead zombie soldiers showed up. Barrows was curious as to why Straff could summon them. Karnak explained that he can't do much against that type of basic necromancy. He told Barrows to get ready to fight. Barrows commented that those zombie soldiers looked like high-ranked undead, and yet Karnak called it basic necromancy. Barrows stated that Straff has more necromancy power than they have thought, and if it goes on, they'll be fighting forever. Karnak replied that the longer they fight, the worse it gets for them. He planned to make a break for it. When they got the chance, Karnak used a dark blade. Some of the undead fell, and many more got hit with his attack. Straff was triggered. He commented that they weren't bad, but it's useless against his overwhelming power. He then called for Demon Gehenna. A large demon came out of a summoning circle. This demon looked scary with his red eyes, large horns, and huge body and wings. The demon asked his contractor for his desires. Straff told the demon to kill the man and bring the woman to him. The demon asked who exactly he was supposed to kill. Barrows and Karnak were translucent. Karnak commented that he had never seen a necromancer fall for an illusion so easily. Straff asked when it happened. Karnak explained that it was there since the barrier broke. It just proves how amateur Straff is. And then Karnak uttered "See you," and their translucent bodies vanish in the air. Straff was confused that everything was all an illusion. It made him really angry. He cursed at them. Meanwhile, Carrick and Barrows were sitting on the grass, chilling. Karnak stated how much of an idiot Straff is. It's what he gets for focusing on just one type of spell. That kind of illusion was even nothing. Barrows added that it gave them time to escape. Barrows confirmed to Karnak that it would be too dangerous to go back to the PLS. Karnak replied yes, since the Ranf Felts will search there first. Soroy was groggy when she uttered that they were lying to them all along. Karnak and Barrows were slightly nervous. They asked how she's feeling. She's agitated and tells them to stop pretending that they care about her when they are filthy necromancers. She asked where they were. Karnak explained that they are hiding outside the city to avoid the barriers since they needed time to heal her. She asked if it's heal and not kill. Carrick replied that they're trying to be good people and that they'll just erase some of her memories. She replied that it's fine. She shared that she can't feel her hands, and with that she won't be able to live a normal life, let alone be a swordsman. She looked like she's holding back the tears when she asked them to just kill her. Barrows stayed silent, but his expression shows that he empathizes with her. He suggested to the young master to use a healing spell from a skilled priest. Carrick replied that they can't use holy magic since it would go against the natural order. Barrows asked if there's anything that they can do with necromancy. Karnak was surprised that Barrows just said that Sarath's eyes had hope in it. She asked if they could use necromancy to give her arm back. Karnak replied that he might be able to, but he doesn't really recommend it. In order to accept the necromancy, she would need to become his servant. He towered on her and sarcastically asked if she's willing to become a servant of an evil necromancer. She turned pale hearing that a necromancer can control the human soul in order to use them like slaves through a slave contract. There have been plenty of stories of captured adventurers going through cruel torture until they met their end. Soroi knew it was terrible and she couldn't accept it, but she looked at her hand using magical messaging. Karnak cursed at Barrows for mentioning necromancy. On purpose, Barrows laughed and asked if it was that obvious. He explained that he couldn't help it since he understands what she's feeling right now. He hoped that he's not asking for too much. Karnak explained to Sarthi that although he's trying to stay away from using necromancy, seeing her in her current state, he can't really give her a suggestion on what she should do. He told her that if she becomes his servant, she will regain her lost arm. He gave her the freedom to decide, and he'll do what she. So she asked what would happen if she became his servant. He explained that once the contract has been sealed, he'll be able to see the structure of her soul. With that information, he'll restore her body after that, although she will have free will, a few restrictions will be placed. If she betrays him, she will face death. In her mind, it sounds dangerous at first, but it's not too different from the vow of loyalty that knights undergo. It's a decision between losing her freedom or her future as a swordsman, and the decision is all hers. She thought about it. She then called Lord Karnak and asked him to take her as his servant. Karnak told her that it will be the last time that he will ask if she's sure about it. She replied yes, since it's better than never being able to pick up a sword again. With that, Karnak decided to start. Karnak extended his hand over Sarah's arm and spoke in the name of Karnak, guard Lord of Darkness. I ask of the Soroi Alan, will you become my servant? She replied yes. He told her to open her mind and accept the contract act of servitude. If she does, she will gain what she had lost. The scripture appeared on her arm, and it made her groan. The scripture extends to her hands, and it made her groan louder until it was done. She inspected her hand. Karnak called her full name with authority and told her that with that she is now his servant. She happily replied, yes, my master. Barrows was happy for her. Then he asked what they should do about the kidnapped alias and reeling. Karnak replied that SDF's necromancy power is stronger than he thought, so it would be better to use large-scale necromancy instead of chaos mana. Barrows replied that if that happens, the city will be destroyed. Karnak said that they have two choices. First, they get ready and then go save Alas and Rehane. Second, they give up on them and run away. Barrows groaned and uttered that either choice would make them a bad guy. It's funny how they both agreed that being good is hard. Meanwhile, Soroi is dumbfounded since the obvious choice is saving their friends. Barrows asked if that's okay, even if they had to use such a violent method. She explained that even if it's not the best choice, they can't just give up on their friends, and saving their friends despite the potential danger is the right thing to do. Karnak and Barrows were enlightened. Barrows concluded that if the intent is good, even evil methods are justified. Now both of them are pumped up. Karnak uttered that there's no choice but to use necromancy. Barrows agreed with him, since Soroi said it would be justified. After all, Soroi panicked, since it wasn't what she meant. That interaction was crazy and funny. Meanwhile, in the city, even if it's the middle of the night, people were on the streets and restless. A soldier knocked on the door while the rest asked the townspeople if they had seen a suspicious outsider. A man complained since they're just simply merchants. A soldier grabbed his collar and told him to shut up since they've got orders to capture all outsiders. One soldier complained about what they're doing late at night. His colleague saw him drinking while on duty. His colleague called him out to get moving. He got pissed off that he's being bossed around his colleague's side and uttered that he's not doing it because he wants to. Suddenly, the colleague swung his sword at him. He got angry since he took it as his colleague wanting to fight him. His colleague explains that it's a misunderstanding and that his arm moved on its own, but the man attacked his colleague. Other soldiers saw the commotion and told them to stop and get back to work, but the man argued that it was his colleague who started it first. To their surprise, this soldier no longer looked like a human, but he's almost like a werewolf. The soldiers rushed to kill the monster. The man was confused as to what monster they were talking about. They cut him down. Karnak watches them. While in stealth, he commented that the city is so corrupt that everyone falls into a panic as soon as an issue arises. Soroi asked why he needed to cause a scene. He explained that he's making an undead army. Soroi was surprised and asked if he's doing it right. There, he explained that it is the best choice in order to face Straff. Luckily, there's enough death in it to use in the city. However, there weren't enough bodies to control. Karnak had no choice since There aren't enough, he just has to make them. It was so funny how Barrows proudly uttered that even if it's a little evil, it's to save their friend's Karnak. Grinned widely, Soroi watched them with worry, but she knew that if she didn't say that, those two would have left the mage and the priest behind. Also, she felt that Carrick doesn't seem evil as the rumor says. She noticed that he only targeted members of Ramfelt, and he left the ordinary towns people alone. The fight among the soldiers continued. They were slaughtering each other at the same time. They're confused as to what is going on. Karnak eventually said that they made enough to make things even. While extending his hand, he uttered, "Awaken, my army." Dark light entered the corpses of the soldiers, and the corpses turned into zombies with sharp fangs. They marched down. Sari's opinion changed. Immediately, she thought of Karnak as cruel and evil. The street was filled with the army of the undead. Karnak commanded them to march forward. Soroi became concerned if she'll be okay, becoming a servant of a man like him. Winged demons flew. They covered the skies while the army was climbing the walls. The zombies fought with the winged demons. Karnak watched from afar. Although everything is going according to plan, SDF's necromancy power is stronger than he thought. Straff even managed to summon a death dragon and 7 trumpeters deep inside. Carrick knew that he should be the only one capable of using that spell. Since the past changed, he wondered if some people managed to obtain some of his items. Karnak told them that they should go, otherwise they would be found out. Soroi asked what would be found out. RM revealed that it's the fact that zombies are just illusions. Soroi was taken aback. Karnak told her that most of the zombies are. He asked her if she really thought that he would be able to make all of them in that short period of time. Sarthi was relieved and pleased. She praised him for doing good. She considered that he's better than she thought. Meanwhile, inside the estate, Straff stood in the middle of the circle while the mage and the priest lay before him. The muscle-like vein is chained to his arms. He's pissed off at the zombies, saying that those are pests. Despite their numbers, the vines are connected to his senses, enabling him to see what's going on. He looked for the enemies. Suddenly, he heard someone behind him comment on how big the estate is for having such a huge basement underneath. Straff was really surprised. He recognized the voice. He turned around and saw Karnak. Barrows and Sarthi. Karnak uttered, "I told you I'd see you soon." He had no idea how those people got in there. Karnak told Straff that he looked tired fighting the zombies. Must have taken a toll on him. Soroi saw Alias and Reelan. They were in an altar too since they were about to be sacrificed to the demon. Straff asked if it was all Karnak's doing. He told Karnak that he's mistaken about something. He admitted that he's tired, but it's not enough that he wouldn't be able to face them. He told them that he will make them regret crawling in his space. He told his army of undead to attack. Barrows and Soroi were amazing with their swordsmanship. Karnak called for the slaves of the soul from the depths of the purgatory. His skill was called Echoes of the Underworld. Floating ghosts like grim rippers appeared, and they take out most of the zombies. They continued to fight alongside Barrows and Soroi. A zombie fell to the ground. Most of the zombies were defeated. Straff asked how they were able to deal with them quickly. He decided to use his trump card. He summoned Gehenna's demon. The demon rose from the magic circle. Sarthi was taken aback. Barrows asked if the man wasn't tired of this, yet he commented that it's a maj. None again. Even Karnak thinks it's too repetitive. Karnak anticipates that STF's necromancy power must have reached its limit. Karnak's power binds the demon. It hinders him from fully emerging. Karnak called it counter-summoning. He told the demon to go back, since he already had a nice walk. The demon replied that he would just rip it to shreds. He forced himself to come out of the summoning circle. It caused a large explosion. When he's finally out, he asked his contractor to state what he wants. Straff was panting when he replied that he wants those men to be killed and the woman to be given to him. The demon replied that he will fulfill the contract. Soroi felt an incredible amount of pressure. Karnak was surprised that the summoning gates stopped closing. Then he told Sarthi that it didn't go as planned. He urged them to go fight. For now, the look on the faces of the two was so funny, yet they still charged at the demon. They attacked together. The demon finds them an insect. As funny, the demon's attack was destructive. Sarthi and Barrows had defended themselves from the impact. Karnak created a fireball in his hand. Several fireballs rained down on the demon. The demon extinguished the fire with his wind. Soroi stated that if the demon was an aura user, it would be around the level of a purple knight. Barrows sighed. and uttered that if only he had awakened his battle aura, he wouldn't be struggling like that. Karnak heard that, then he remembered something. He told Barrows that they will do Plan P. Barrows recalled it too. Karnak placed his glowing hand on Barrows's head. He called him my kin. Soroi was confused that it happened suddenly, especially when Karnak said earlier that Barrows wasn't his kin. Carrick told him to open his mind and accept his order. Barrows's eyes turned blue. Even Sarthi too. Turns out Plan P is possession. Barrow had entered Sari's body. He shared that it has been a while since he moved in someone else's body. Sarthi realized that when Karnak called his kin, he was talking about her. With a devilish grin on his face, Karnak commanded, "Go, Sarab." Barrows. Soroi complained that it's a stupid name. Our MC has entered a Pokemon battle. Barrow told Soroi that he will borrow her body for a bit. She told him to treat her well and be sure to give it back to her. The demon scoffed at the idea that some bastard who isn't an aura user is using someone else's battle aura. Barrows approached him and asked who said he can't use the battle aura. The demon asked how. Because of the demon's arrogance, he didn't have the time to defend himself and was cut down. Barrows revealed that using someone else's battle aura is his expertise. The demon had observed how the enemy had aimed for his gap perfectly, and it seemed that the enemy was stronger than before. The sword glowed in blue. Shrey just became a blue knight because Barrows is using her body. Barrows told her that her latent power is incredible, and thanks to that he could fight comfortably. He slashed the demon consecutively. It looked like he was enjoying himself. The demon didn't expect to lose. The demon was about to lift his arm, but Barrows was already walking on it. After slashing it several times, the demon knew it was bad for him. The demon swung its sword, but Barrows evaded it nicely. Barrows taunted the demon by asking if that's all he got. The demon was already breathing heavily. He called Barrows a monster, but the demon told Barrows that he shouldn't think that he already had one, because the demon knew that once he stopped possessing the body, it's all over. The demon directed his attack towards Carrick. A loud explosion happened. The demon laughed out loud, thinking he was a careless human, but then Carrick asked him what he was doing. Carrick laughed at the idea that the one who summoned and the one who was summoned was easily fooled. There were several illusions of Karnak in the area. Karnak asked the demon if it really thought that he wouldn't be able to tell what it was thinking. The demon asked if all of those are illusions. It got confused about what to kill. Barrows took the chance. While it was distracted, he slashed that big body from behind. It was a fatal injury. The demon overexerted itself to get out of the counter summon, and now it doesn't have enough mana. It covered its bleeding chest while expressing how it didn't expect that a human would be able to do that. Its feet glowed. The summoning gate is back. While retreating, the demon threatened to find them. Once it got back, it made a promise from hell that the enemies won't die or live. Karnak was annoyed that it was trying to escape after all their efforts. He wouldn't allow it. Karnak released his powers while telling the demon to go. Extinct violet light enveloped the demon and pulled it away from the summoning circle. The demon felt its mana flowing backwards. It yelled loudly while writhing in pain. Its life force was taken away too, and it perished. Karnak's illusions fade away. Two Barrows and Shrey were back to their original bodies. Barrows thanks Sarthi for letting him use her body. Karnak announced that there's only one bastard left to deal with. Straff sighed and stated that he surrenders. He arrogantly told Carrick that he will tell them everything they need to know. Karnak told him that he's misunderstanding something. Straff was confused. Karnak explained that it would be simpler to just kill him and just make his soul descend and interrogate him, so there's no need for him to make things more complicated. To emphasize his point, Karnak asked Sarthi if there's any reason why he can't kill the guy, and Sarthi urged Karnak to kill Straff. Karnak made a large scythe with his powers. Straff yelled wait, but the scythe had already attacked him. His body was laid on the floor. While Carrick started his business, he took out a green orb of power from SDF's chest. He was delighted with its generosity, since it's about 30 servings. With that, they would be able to go home. Karnak and Barrow's goofy faces were hilarious. Since they had gathered enough, Karnak invited them to go home. Barrows was thinking of looking into good restaurants on their way back, but Sarthi called them. She pulled the ropes tied around Alias and Relhan and told them that they couldn't just leave them. It was funny how Karnak blurted out That he forgot when Alias and Reelan woke up, they were surprised they couldn't believe that the three were able to defeat Straff by themselves, especially when Straff isn't someone who could be defeated with just 3 people. Karnak told them that they were just lucky. He explained that after the two were injured by golems and dragged down to the basement, a sudden army of zombies hit the residence, and it would seem that some other necromancer used the commotion to rise in revolt. Reelan replied that it would make sense with SDF's personality. Karnak added that Straff must have run low on necromancy power from defending, so he ran into the basement. Karnak narrated that they took the chance and got sorries helped to defeat Straff. Alas, and Reelan believed the story. Alas replied that it must have been Hoba blessing. Karnak informed him that they didn't touch the corpse, so he could carry out the purification ritual. Alias placed his staff on top of SDF's chest, and it glowed. The power flowed into the bottle. Alias noticed the incredible amount compared to the other necromancer. Straff had at least 10 times the amount of darkness of the end. Using the magical messaging, Barrows asked Karnak why there was necromancy power. Lefty thought Carrick took it all out with the info. Karnak replied that it would be too obvious if he took it all. They have finished their business, since they have defeated Straff. Ramfelt has now lost their primary force, and the city will soon stabilize. Alias told them that the Order will take care of the rest. After a while, aloud what could be heard that was Alias' reaction when he heard Sarthi became a knight of Jarred Barony. Reelan became curious about their conversation. Alas asked her why. Carrick wondered if it was that surprising Soroy lied that she realized that Baron Karnak is someone worth pledging her allegiance to. Alias accepted that she had found someone good to serve. Carrick informs Allos that they will return to their territory to officially ordain her. They bid each other goodbye at the guard estate. They were warmly welcomed by the servants. Karnak happily greeted them. Tapel the butler was about to asked if they had been well, but his attention shifted. He was surprised to see a hot, red-haired lady behind him. They were all curious about who the beautiful woman was. The servants had an assumption, and it made them blush. Tapel asked the Lord. Karnak initiated the introductions and told them that Soroy Allen is a new knight of the Jester Barony. Soroy greeted them. Tapel explained to Karnak that even if the territory is on the edge, he cannot take anyone in as a knight. It would be troublesome. Barrows encouraged Dame Soroy to show them. Sarthi took out her sword, and it glowed red. Tapel was surprised to see the battle aura when Sarthi swung her sword. The ground cracked, even the tree broke in half. It left the aura with dust. They were surprised to see the aura user. Soroy smiled at them and told them that she's looking forward to working with him. In his head, Tapel wondered why a precious person like him was in a shabby place like. There's a few weeks later, Soroy was up against a knight. The other knights saw how the guy is struggling, but they can also empathize with that knight with their weight difference and with Soroy just using her strength. It's hard to understand how the knight is being pushed back. Sray isn't even using her battle aura. The knights were amazed. A sword is flown in the air. The knight surprised to see the battle aura when Sarthi swung her sword. The ground cracked, even the tree broke in half. It left the aura with dust. They were surprised to see the aura user. Soroy smiled at them and told them that she's looking forward to working with them. In his head, Tapel wondered why a precious person like him was in a shabby place like. There's a few weeks later, Soroy was up against a knight. The other knights saw how the guy is struggling, but they can also empathize with that knight with their weight difference and with Soroy just using her strength. It's hard to understand how the knight is being pushed back. Sray isn't even using her battle aura. The knights were amazed. A sword is flown in the air. The knight watches it until it falls on the ground. The knight acknowledged Sari's strength and decided to end the training there. Barrows thanked Dame Sarthi for helping the knights train. Then he asked if he could go next. They clashed swords. He told her that her use of battle aura is still awkward and she wastes her power. He lectured her that she needs to be able to use the right amount of power in each strike. In Sari's mind, it isn't as easy as it sounds. She called Sir Barrows. She asked if he can't just possess her body like before. She explained that if she experiences it a few more times, she'll get the hang of it. Barrows explained that it's best not to do it more than once. If she does it more than 3 times, her soul will be corrupted and she'll go crazy. She was surprised to hear that he told her that she can get stronger without it since she's talented enough. Barrows decided to end their spar since he needs her to awaken his battle aura in the afternoon. Meanwhile, inside the estate, Karnak was thinking of how there's no way of knowing. He's curious how Straff was able to combine necromancy power and divinity. He wondered if there's some kind of ability to combine his power with another energy, but he would have definitely learned about it. He scratched his head. Since he couldn't find any clues, he decided to think about it later. And for now, he focused on blocking the hole that's spreading darkness. Carrick knows that the darkness of the end flows somehow and gets through time and space to spread throughout the land. So he thought of making a powerful physique that can investigate dangerous time and space. He casted a spell to wash the darkness down several strands and manipulate it in detail without making mistakes. A large red sphere with an eye on the middle had formed. It's a time-space investigation powerful physique called Eye of Darkness. Our MC was successful on his first experiment. Thank you all for watching. Please watch this next GigaChad video, and I'll see you guys next time. Also support the channel by joining the Summon Club membership. You can also support by just liking the video and being awesome.